The movie starts with a scene showing an orchard full of apple trees. Many apples have fallen to the ground, some are rotting, and a worm can be seen inside one of them. A little girl appears and picks up an apple to take home. When she gets home, she calls out to her mom, Jessica. Jessica has 2 children, the little girl and a young boy. The girl hands the apple to her mom with excitement, but Jessica, noticing it spoiled and already having a lot of apples at home, many of which are rotten, tosses it into a basket without much thought. The girl feels upset and tells her mom, I brought you this apple with love and you just threw it away. You broke my heart. We soon learn that Jessica is a recovering drug addict, having recently undergone treatment at a hospital to quit using drugs. Her husband, however, is still struggling with addiction and doesn't live with them anymore. He left Jessica and their kids to fend for themselves. Jessica now lives with her children in her father's old, rundown house. It's in bad shape with broken doors and damaged rooms. The storeroom door, in particular, is tricky. Once it's shut, it can't be opened from the inside. Because of this, Jessica always places something in front of the door to keep it open, or she uses her foot to stop it from closing. This has happened to her before, but when her husband lived with them, he would help her get out. Now that he's gone, she's on her own. Jessica decides that she'll try to make and sell apple jam just like her mother used to. She knows a great recipe, but the apples she has are too spoiled to work with, so that plan falls through. Feeling frustrated and desperate, Jessica doesn't know how to make money. She's overwhelmed by bills, debts, and the responsibility of raising 2 children alone. Thinking of her mother, who lives in the city, Jessica decides to ask for help. She calls her mom, but her mom is hesitant. She tells Jessica, if you come, make sure you're serious about working. You had a drug problem before, and I still don't fully trust you. Jessica assures her mom, I'm serious. I have responsibilities now. After the call, Jessica starts packing to leave. She goes to the storeroom to gather her things, but suddenly, a gust of wind slams the door shut, trapping her inside. She panics, knowing her children are too young to help. Her daughter is still very small, but Jessica calls for her, hoping she can bring a screwdriver. The girl tries her best, but even with the screwdriver, Jessica can't open the door. Fortunately, Jessica's husband shows up unexpectedly. He opens the door, teasing her, I'm not even surprised anymore that you got stuck in the storeroom again. You're so careless. Jessica, frustrated but thankful, responds, first of all, you're not supposed to be here because of your addiction. Second, thanks for getting me out, but now please leave. I don't want your bad habits to affect me or the kids. Her husband, however, didn't come alone. He brought his friend Sammy, who is also a drug user and a bad influence. Sammy is involved in shady activities, including harming and kidnapping children, which makes Jessica very uncomfortable. She politely but firmly asks them both to leave, telling her husband, don't ever bring him here again. Sammy gets angry and confronts Jessica, asking, what's your problem with me? He starts to manipulate her husband, convincing him that Jessica is treating him unfairly. Angered, her husband sides with Sammy, slaps Jessica, and accuses her of thinking she's better than him now that she's sober. Despite being hurt, Jessica stands her ground and tells him, do whatever you want of me, but Sammy cannot come here. Neither should you until you quit drugs. I need to protect our children from this. Enraged, her husband locks Jessica back in the storeroom. He blames her for their struggles, saying, it's all your father's fault we're in this mess. He didn't leave us anything. Jessica pleads with him to let her out, but he secures the door and leaves, ignoring her cries to keep Sammy away from their kids. Inside the storeroom, Jessica's situation worsens. She realizes her phone is outside, and she had taken all her money out of her purse, planning to leave with it. Now, she's stuck without her phone or her cash. As her husband hammers nails into the door, one of them pierces Jessica's hand, causing her pain and making her cry. Despite her injury, her main concern is her children's safety. She had told her daughter to take her brother to their room and lock the door, which the little girl had done. After some time, when her husband and Sammy finally leave, the girl comes out and asks Jessica, Mom, my brother is crying. He's hungry. When are you coming out? Jessica, heartbroken, tells her, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I want to come out, but I'm stuck in here. Just stay with your brother and keep him company. Her daughter, though small, is smart and brave. Jessica asks her to bring her phone, which the girl manages to do by sliding it under the door. Jessica tries to call for help, but there's no signal in the storeroom. She feels hopeless, knowing they live in such an isolated area with no nearby neighbors to help. Then, her daughter says, Mom, I need to go to the bathroom. Jessica encourages her to go by herself, but the girl refuses to leave her mom's side and ends up wetting herself. Later, the girl asks Jessica how to change her brother's diaper, and Jessica explains it to her. The girl manages to do it well, showing how resourceful she is despite the situation. As night falls, the weather turns stormy, and the sounds of the wind and rain make the girl scared. While her brother sleeps, she lies lies down by the door, wanting to be close to her mom. Jessica reassures her, "It's okay, sweetie. I'll get out of here soon. Don't be afraid." Eventually, the girl falls asleep. Jessica, desperate to free herself, searches for something in the storeroom to break the door but finds nothing. Helpless, she sits there, thinking about how to escape as the night drags on. In the morning, her daughter said, "Mom, my brother and I are hungry." Hearing this, Jessica gives them the jam she found in the storage room. The children eat it and fill their stomachs. As for Jessica, she had some herself and held on to hope. She thought, "Today, I will get out of here. Today, my husband will come." His anger must have cooled by now. But he didn't come that day, and she couldn't bear staying there any longer. She knew she had to get out because her children were suffering from being alone and needed her. When her son started crying, Jessica told her daughter, "Go put your brother to sleep, and when he's sleeping, come back. I need your help." After calming her brother, the girl returned. Jessica told her, "Sweetheart, bring me something I can use to break the door or the floor." The child, being so young, couldn't find anything really useful but still brought things. Sometimes wood, sometimes toys, sometimes a spoon or fork. Seeing this, Jessica got frustrated and threw everything at the door. She shouted, "What are you doing? I don't need these. They won't help." Her daughter, upset by Jessica's anger, began to cry. Realizing her mistake, Jessica softened and said, "I'm sorry, honey. I yelled at you too much." She hugged her daughter as tears welled up in her own eyes. Jessica regretted many things in her life, the biggest one being her decision to marry her husband. In the storage room, there was still a little bit of alcohol left, which she was tempted to drink. But with all her willpower, she stopped herself. Since her daughter couldn't bring her anything useful, Jessica had to make do with a screwdriver. She began chipping away at the floor, even though her injured hand made it difficult. Her hand hurt badly, and she feared it might get infected. That day, Sammy returned, this time alone. Her daughter, noticing his arrival, told Jessica. Hearing this, Jessica was terrified. "Go to the room," she told her daughter urgently. "Lock the door and don't open it." The child did as she was told. Sammy, the man Jessica feared most, was now in front of her. She begged him, "Please open the door." But he coldly replied, "No, I don't interfere in people's family problems." At that moment, Jessica realized Sammy had come to hurt her children. Panicked, she told him to leave and to stay away from them. He refused, but Jessica quickly thought of a plan. "I have some of my husband's drugs here," she told Sammy. "If you promise to leave and never come back, I'll give them to you." Sammy agreed, saying, "Okay, bring it here." But Jessica didn't trust him. "I'm stuck here," she said. "I can't reach the door. Just put your hand through and I'll hand it to you." Sammy, cautious, hesitated, but Jessica insisted, and he eventually put his hand through the door. The moment his hand was within reach, Jessica acted fast. She stabbed his hand with the screwdriver and drove it deeper using a stone, pinning his hand to the floor. Sammy, writhing in pain, tried to talk his way out. "Let me go. I won't hurt your children, I promise." Jessica ignored him. He then started rambling about how addiction had ruined his life, saying, "I went to rehab to get clean, but what's the point? Nobody cares whether I live or die." Jessica, emotionally drained, began crying. His words hit close to home, but she didn't show it. It was night now and very cold, but Jessica refused to let go of Sammy's hand. By morning, her daughter tried to come to Jessica, but when Jessica noticed, she screamed, "Why did you come here? Go back." She was afraid that, despite being trapped, Sammy still had enough strength to hurt her daughter. The girl, lonely and scared after spending the night without her mother, didn't listen and kept coming closer. That's when Sammy grabbed her. Jessica was terrified. To save her daughter, she used a lighter and set fire to the area around Sammy's hand. As the flames reached him, he screamed in agony and released the girl. Jessica quickly put out the fire before it spread, but Sammy passed out from the pain. In that moment of desperation, Jessica thought of turning to drugs to numb her pain. But before she could, she noticed a Bible lying nearby. She opened it and was shocked to find money hidden on each page. Money her father had left for her. As she read a few lines, she became overwhelmed with emotion and began to cry. She threw the drugs aside and took the screwdriver from Sammy's hand while he was still unconscious. Jessica then started breaking through the ceiling instead of the floor. She succeeded and climbed up into the bathroom above. From there, she made her way to the room where her children were. She was terrified something had happened to them, but to her relief, they were safe. The children were still hungry, and the food was in the car, but the keys were with Sammy. Jessica quietly took the keys from him and got the children ready to leave. It was pouring rain outside, and she hadn't brought any milk for the kids, so they returned to the house, dripping wet. She left the children inside because it was too cold and rainy for them to go back out. Jessica went alone to retrieve the food from the car, but as she was gathering it, she noticed Sammy had regained consciousness dangerousness and was watching her from the window. When Jessica returned to the house, the door was locked. Sammy had locked it from the inside. She panicked. Her children were trapped in there with him. Bursting inside, she found Sammy holding a knife to her children's throats. Jessica pleaded with him, "Please, leave my children alone. They're innocent. What did they do?" But Sammy wasn't listening. He was about to harm them when her husband suddenly arrived, armed with a gun. He shot at Sammy, freeing the children, and Sammy fled the house. Jessica's husband, now in the storage room, found the money and drugs. He told Jessica, "Come with me." Afraid that refusing might provoke him again, Jessica agreed but secretly planned to escape with her children later. She sent her husband out to the car to get food, and while he was gone, she spiked his sandwich with drugs. He ate it but still took out a syringe and injected himself with more drugs. When he tried to take the gun from Jessica, she fought back, and during the struggle, she pushed him out of the window. He fell and was knocked unconscious. A few days later, Jessica had settled into a new rhythm. She found a book with instructions on how to make jam and began running a successful business. She realized that she didn't need perfect apples to make jam. Even the bruised ones had value. Her life had changed for the better. The house was in better shape, she had money from the jam business, and she was raising her children well. This story teaches us how dangerous addiction can be. It's a bad habit that destroys lives, and people trapped in addiction can't tell right from wrong. With this message, the movie ends.